Hi, I'm Lee and this is my little postcard to you about my handmade life. And today I wanted to talk to you about a thing that I've done. You can probably hear the dog that I'm dog sitting just having a scratch in the background. He has a bigger collar and just jangles a bit more when he does that. My normal dog is just quietly having a wee snooze on the couch because the visitor dog requires a longer walk, and so my dog is absolutely shattered. And the visitor dog would now like me to play with his ball. But anyway, I'm going to tell you about a thing. I'm not going to say that I've started because I might have finished it now as well. We'll just have to see. This thing that I've done was inspired by a number of things. I went to the Festival of Quilts at the NEC near Birmingham at the beginning of August and saw so many interesting things while I was there. But particularly, I came across a stand which was very interesting to me. And I got the card. Let's see if it'll focus. So I had bought some fabric off this particular person for a quilt, a future quilt that I might make. And while I was standing at the stand, I realised that the fabric that Nicola was selling wasn't actually the main thing. Behind her, she had these brilliant quilts that were made using a quilt as you go method, and she was selling the templates for them. And she had rectangle templates and hexagon templates, and it was just really interesting to me the fact that she had this method for making these little mini quilts, and then you could sew them together into a much bigger quilt, which seemed a little bit more manageable on a domestic sewing machine. I didn't buy any of the templates from her, but you can check out Nicola's YouTube channel where she explains how the whole system works. And it was just super interesting to me as another way of constructing a quilt. Then I came home and I was watching a video from Just Get It Done Quilts about she was interviewing a quilt historian. I should really know the name of the video and be able to link to it, and I may do. If I can find the video again, I will link to it in the comments. If it's not there, then I haven't found it. Anyway, they were talking about quilt as you go methods and discussing something called a potholder quilt, which was really similar to the Daisy and Grace method that Nicola had shown me with her quilts. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. At the same time, I had been watching a number of YouTube videos and coming across a number of patterns for sampler quilts, and I was also thinking about skill building for myself and thought, a sampler quilt, that might be the way to do it. And so I was looking at different patterns and I came across a second-hand book on Amazon. Stand by. And it's this one. It's Tula Pink's 100, what is it called? 100 Modern Quilt Blocks book. And this is set up to make all the quilt blocks and then to put them all together as you would a normal quilt and then quilt it that way. And I was like, if I do this using a quilt as you go method, then I'm not tied to a finished thing or a finished size or having to commit to do so many. I can just do them as an experiment. And as I looked through the book here, I also realized that actually I could just try things out. I didn't necessarily need to follow these particular patterns, but I did sort of think, well, a 6-inch square block, that might just be a good place to start. And in the back of my mind, I sort of thought, do I want to go on an epic quilting journey? I started thinking about colour themes and making maybe a big wall hanging, and then I thought, actually, I just need to do the thing. This can just be a source of play for me. And so that's what I've done. Sorry, that probably looked a bit weird. I've just got things down here in a little pile. And so I just decided that I would just use this as a way of experimenting, of trying out different techniques. And I was going to use a quilt as you go method just so I didn't have a whole lot of things that weren't quite finished. And I really liked the potholder idea, and it seemed relatively simple to me. And so this was the first thing that I decided to experiment with, was a little bit some half square triangles and a little bit of fussy cutting. So I was trying to get the bees on this rather nice fabric that I like, actually in a place where you could see the bees rather than just cutting randomly and getting rid of the bees. So it's not fussy cutting extreme, it's just fussy cutting having a go. The backing was actually a pillowcase that a friend gave me that was an odd size for the pillows that we have here in the UK, and it was a nice organic cotton, and so I decided to use that. And so this was my little go at doing half square triangles, and just having it, because the thing about a half square triangle is that you're sewing on the bias, and so I was just having a go at that. And then I did some quilting with my walking foot. I used a contrast colour on the back, and that was partly so I could see if my tension was correct and just play around with that. Yeah, and so it was just a really fun little experiment, playing around with the colours and the placement of fabrics and all that sort of stuff. And then I made another square. And you see, this is the thing that I like about it, is it's kind of a mini quilt by itself. If I stopped now, I could use this for something. Or if I make a few more, I can sew them together, or not. Right now it's pleasing me just to put this on my bedside table to be able to see it and enjoy it. So yeah. So for the next one, I've been wanting for a while to have another go at, what do you call it? I've forgotten the name. Where you draw with thread. Free motion quilting. In my mind, I had built it up to be something quite difficult. So I decided to make a fairly plain block, and just set up my machine to have a little play with free motion quilting, and just do some doodling. I'd been watching a video by Angela Walters, and she was talking about just moving the fabric as if you were writing or making O's or something, and so that was what I was trying out. and I used thread on the back. I used white thread on the front and then an orange on the back so that I could check the tension on my sewing machine. Yeah, so far I have made 2 of these blocks. I've cut out another one. I cut out those a couple of weeks ago and I haven't done anything with it. But as I say, these may be the only 2 I make. I might make more, I may not. But I am enjoying these little mini quilts immensely. They were fun to do. I feel like I've finished a thing. I'm sure I could use it for something else if I only ever made, I could use them for something if I only ever make 2, or I may end up with a collection of them. So, and I think for me, I would like it to be just a little skill builder thing that I can do whenever I happen to have my sewing machine out. Skill builder and just a little creative activity. It's fun to pick through scraps and choose different things to put together, to choose the colours and think about the design of it, and it was really good fun to put these little peeping cats in here. So yeah, all of those kind of inspirations came together, and so far I've made 2 blocks, and that's all. So I would be really interested to know what's inspiring you at the moment. And to hear, sort of like what's feeding your creativity. It was also really nice to see all of your comments about my avocado dyeing experiments and to hear about your own experiments with natural dyeing and how you mordanted or didn't mordant, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, leave me a comment down below about what you're up to, or how you're building your skills. It's always really nice to hear from you, and I shall see you next time. Cheerio.